September 28th, Sunday after week 5 in the sunbelt slate. Welcome into the wrap. TJ O'Sullivan and Dominick Crosetto with you. Dom, great week of football, I should say, this past week, especially the last game that we're going to talk about today. How you doing?
I am doing good. Got a bunch of yard work done today. It was supposed to, the hurricanes coming up the coastline here. We're going to be receiving a bunch of rain, so I got a lot of the seed down, right? So as a homeowner, you hate to pay for watering your yard. So I'm going to get some natural water, and we're gonna make it work that way. We're going to grow some quality grass.
The amount of yard work that I hear Dom doing whenever we're texting back and forth. Hey, Dom, can you call for seconds? Yeah, sorry, I'm just mowing my lawn really quick. He is always out there. His lawn, you better win awards with the amount of work you put on your lawn.
Well, hopefully after redoing it this fall, we can be looking that way. That's why it took so long before. It's a bunch of bad crabgrass that's grabbing my mower and making it take twice as long as it should. So,
well, I'm rooting for you, man. You keep me updated on how the committee decides. But welcome in to the wrap with you from the first kick to the final pitch. Dom, I used it. Don't worry, I got you. We had 7-game slate, I believe, if my math serves me correctly. 7-game slate in week 5. A couple teams had byes, and we had 4 out-of-conference games. And the Sunbelt went 2-2. One of those games was where the Sunbelt Syndicate had ranked as the top non-conference game of the season for the Sunbelt, App State versus Boise State. And spoiler alert, did not go quite the way that the Sunbelt would have hoped. We're going to get into a lot of the details later. But, overall, a pretty good week. And I think a week that showed us where some of these teams land and where they sit in the actual hierarchy of the Sunbelt rankings. So did anything stand out to you before we get in the first game?
Yeah, I would say some of the games that were kind of obvious did kind of go the way we thought. And then some of the ones, spoiler, the App State game, I think even people that weren't App fans thought they might go out there and look decent, compete. Right. But I think that there was some shocks, good and bad. And then I think the biggest shock was the one that ended the night, and can't wait to get into that one. That's got all kinds of stuff to talk about. But it was luckily a lot more manageable for the website side of things to go from like 14, 13 games a week down to 7 is a lot easier for me to take in a lot more of the action, a lot easier for fans that do the same type of thing that I do, which is keep an eye on as many teams in this conference as possible, plus the other stuff, right? Like, of course, we're turning into a little bit of the Penn State-Oregon game, trying to see what happens nationally as well. So it's nice when you don't have double-digit games that you're trying to keep an eye on and report on, and you can it just felt like a lot more of an enjoyable Saturday of football for me personally.
Yeah, luckily the rest of the way, with the exception of a handful of non-conference games in the later part of the season, we're in the conference play. We're well underway. So it will be 7 or 8 games here and there the rest of the way. I think the only week that it is 8 games is later on in the season when Coastal goes off to play South Carolina. So I believe that's the last week that we have more than 7 games. So gets you in front of the TV, and it gives you a lot of Sunbelt football, and you don't have to be flipping channels or anything like that. It's going to be a lot more manageable from here on out. Why don't we get into our first game, which was coming into this season, it wasn't going to be all that crazy of a game, and then North Texas became a really sneaky good pull in this non-conference slate for the conference. The Mean Green end up taking it 36-22, as you see on the graphic there. South Alabama is struggling early on in this season. they've been competitive, I think, in just about every game they've played. But they seem to be letting leads slip later on in games, and that reigned true in this one. 36-22. North Texas now 5-0 on the season. Dom, what'd you like from this one?
Well, I think just like you said, they were still competitive in this game. They had cut it to a one-score game. We'll skip a lot of the earlier stuff, right? It was kind of neck and neck. Nobody could really jump out in front of the other. Then South Alabama goes down by 2 scores. Again, cut it to 1. They do an onside kick and recover the onside kick, but a very, very questionable flag. And the broadcaster put it the best that I've heard somebody talk about something like that. I wonder if they throw that flag because his foot was like on the line. Maybe a toe was over. But he says, I wonder if they throw that flag if they kick it all the way down the field, right? A normal kickoff, that's probably not flagged at all. They probably never even thought to throw the flag. But because it was an onside kick, they threw the flag. But I'm telling you, even within the replay, I'm like, I don't know if you could convince me that he was actually offside anyway. I mean, maybe a shoulder, but you'd have to really go right down the line, frame by frame, to convince me that he was legitimately offside anyway. So, again, that could have changed the face of this game completely, right? Because what happens? They re-kick. North Texas gets the ball, returns it to about the 50, so they get a massive return on it. And then they drive down the field and score a touchdown to go back up 2 scores rather quickly. And then South Alabama is trying to chase this game from behind. I still thought Bishop Davenport played pretty good game. I mean, pedestrian numbers for the most part for what he has done in the past, only 195 yards, 1 touchdown, and he did have the 1 interception. But again, I just thought South Alabama is competitive. The defense was getting into that North Texas backfield, but it was hard to bring down Caleb Hawkins. I know you mentioned him before we went live here. 140 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. He had an 8.8 average. I knew he had over 100 yards by watching the game. I did not realize his average was quite that high. That's pretty ridiculous. And even, like I said, even with South Alabama racking up statistically, what was a decent, defensive performance? 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, 3 passes defended. I mean, they got into the backfield and made some great plays. Mean Green is just a little bit better. And then with the help of that kind of unfortunate sequence for South Alabama, this one turned and never got back into their favor.
Yeah, and I think that you're forgetting half of Caleb Hawkins' performance. I mean, 140 yards on the ground, but he added another 78 yards in the air. He was the lead rusher and lead receiver, responsible for 3 total touchdowns. Just an insane performance from Caleb Hawkins. You take his 3 touchdowns off the board, South Alabama has their first FBS win. But Hawkins, obvious player of the game there. And like you said, Bishop Davenport, I do agree. Pedestrian numbers, but he played well. Yes. I thought that he played well. He also added 59 yards on the ground and a touchdown, so 2 touchdowns for him in total. 1-4 South Alabama. That was not on my bingo card for 2025. I genuinely believed that South Alabama was going to be coming into conference play on a pretty high note. What do you think the overall is? It just the opponents that they're playing, or is South Alabama there's some stuff that they need to clean up?
Yeah, definitely some stuff to clean up. One last note on Caleb Hawkins, who is listed as a freshman, who is 6'2", 200 pounds. That dude is running all over the field and catching passes being my size. That's insane. Obviously, he's a little bit more muscular than me, right? But, it's just insane to have a 6'2", 200-plus pound running back and a guy who can also get it done at the wide receiver position as a freshman. That's whether it's a red shirt or not, that is just absolutely ridiculous there. I do think, to be fair to South Alabama, they have played some tough opponents. I think North Texas is a great football team. I don't think that this one was one that, they didn't compete in. Like we already kind of talked about that. They were in this game, right, until later in that fourth quarter where it kind of turned, and unfortunate for them. I mean, I would say, though, let's look at the schedule. They played Tulane, who's probably about to be a ranked team or right there on the cusp. They played a ranked Auburn team, and now they've played this undefeated North Texas team. The one bad loss, and I know TJ hates to hear this, but the bad loss on their schedule is Coastal Carolina because of where Coastal sat when they came in. Now, it may not look like a bad loss later when we know more about how Coastal's going to play out this season, but at the time, it was a bad loss, especially because you're playing that game at home. But they need to get it done on the road too. They haven't won on the road just yet. Their sole win is an FCS win against Morgan State. So yet to win a Division I football game, if you want to go back to the 1AA FCS nomenclature there. But not sure there. We got a first comment of the night from CJ Orndorff, a JMU fan, saying hello from Soap Valley. I guess it's raining over there.
Yeah. But to wrap up on South Alabama, yes, still searching for their first FBS win. This losing streak is now extended to 4 games in a row. Tulane, Auburn, Coastal, and now North Texas. And you said they needed to get it done on the road. They're going to have a chance to this next week as they go and face Troy at their place at 7:00 Eastern time on ESPN Plus. Go ahead and check that game out. But let's take
the Battle of the Belt.
Yeah, the Battle of the Belt. That'll be the what number installment? I think you may have alluded to that, or someone. I think Caleb Seaver alluded to that in the article. I believe it's the 11th Battle of the Belt.
There we go.
Yeah.
And if we want to fact check that, there's a place called the Sunbelt, or I'm sorry, I want to put the in there, sunbeltsyndicate.com, where you can read Caleb's article. He's a great writer down there focusing on South Alabama, doing a great job. I think he was there live no, this was in North Texas. Never mind. He was in the game last week. Yes.
Prior. He was there. He was there for Coastal. Yes. And I believe he was there for Tulane as well. And nice. Morgan State, I believe. Nice. So he's been with us for a while, and he does a great job down there. So you Jaguars fans, go check out his work. Once again, sunbeltsyndicate.com. South Alabama takes on Troy at their place next weekend. Let's take a look at our next game. This one was not quite as competitive the entire length of the way. James Madison did James Madison things. Defeated the Georgia Southern Eagles 35-10. What a performance in this one from Wayne Knight. We're just talking about 140 rushing yards from Caleb Hawkins on North Texas. Wayne Knight, 19 carries, 151 yards and a touchdown. And he also caught a couple of screen passes, 4 catches, 35 yards. Does a great job for James Madison. Really shores up that rushing attack. As a team, they rushed for 343 yards. That is more. That is more than the entire Georgia Southern offense, and it's almost twice as much. That is how crazy this rushing performance was for James Madison. What did you notice about this game? What do you want to bring up?
Well, like you said, I definitely noticed Wayne Knight. If you watched the last James Madison game, you also noticed Wayne Knight. He's become more of a feature of this offense as they stick to more of a one quarterback set. Although we did see Sluka a number of times in this game for a couple of rushes, if I'm not mistaken. He went for just two carries for 10 yards. So very pedestrian, right? But when he's just coming in off the sideline like that, just to kind of mix it up. That's kind of what you want to see. As a James Madison fan, you want to see one commitment to one guy. The team knows who the guy is. And then if you want to throw some gadget plays in there with your other quarterback, make people think he could drop back and pass, great. That's exactly what the 2-quarterback set should offer you, not consistently moving them back and forth and not having any rhythm to what you're trying to accomplish. You've seen what it's done for James Madison now too.
And it looks like that's what they're doing. It looks like Sluka has kind of settled into this wildcat role, attempting a pass here and there. Did not attempt a pass in this one. Just had the 10 yards on 2 carries. But yeah, like you said, it just adds a whole nother look. This is the way that 2 quarterbacks is supposed to be run. Texas was known, many years ago and more recently when Quinn Ewers is the guy, and then you bring in Arch Manning because he does know how to use his legs. That's the way that it should be. You know that Quinn Ewers is the guy. Arch Manning adds that little wrinkle. So yeah, it's starting to work, and it's starting to, earlier on in the season, James Madison was looking a little shaky, not knowing who's going to be the guy. But now that they've established that it's Barnett, I think that they look like the James Madison we expected.
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. And I want to touch on CJ's comment here because he says Sluka seemed upset, and you could tell by his body language. I don't disagree with that, but I think that's more about his struggle to break a play open, not necessarily not seeing the field. I think he's probably understanding his role now. I'm sure he's not happy about it. I'm sure the guy's a competitor. I'm sure he came there to win the starting job. But as a team, if you're winning 35-10, you're still getting on the field. You're still having opportunities to make plays. I think he's realizing that, and he's probably struggling with the fact that he's not making those plays better himself, or he's not getting the pass or the blocking protection that has opened up bigger gaps for Wayne Knight. It's just not always going to happen. It's fine. Again, winning cures everything. I don't think it's something that he's going to be very upset about if this team continues to win easily like they did against Georgia Southern. I do want to shout out one player from Georgia Southern because we talked about him in the preview show, saying if you don't know who this guy is, you need to pay attention. Camden Brown, even with just 5 receptions, 111 yards, over 22 yards average. He had one absolutely fantastic catch where he was like jumped up into the air. He essentially like sat down in the air and then fell in barely because they questioned whether it was a catch or not. It was awesome because his backside hit out of bounds. That's true. It did. But before that, both heels clicked into the playing surface of the field before his backside hit, making it a catch. And he celebrated immediately knowing he caught it and kept the feet in. But absolutely phenomenal play. That guy is going to be a Sunday player, if you ask me. He's got all the attributes as far as size and weight are concerned. He's got the jumping ability. He's got the hands. It's just unfortunate that they haven't had enough of another part of the offense round into form to get him even bigger involvement in this offense. But when he's called upon, he's making the plays. But yeah, just way too much Dukes in this one. And a little surprised. I thought Georgia Southern would score some more points. I'm not surprised that Georgia Southern or JMU scored 35, and I'm not surprised that they won. I just thought Georgia Southern might score somewhere within the 20s, and this game would be closer to like kind of that shootout feel where, 2 quick scores from somebody put the other team in trouble, but was not to be on this rain-soaked Saturday.
Yeah, I do want to I want to confirm, if you weren't watching the last week of the wrap, yes, Dom did mention Camden Brown. He's been very high on Camden Brown. Just looking at his season so far, this is the second straight week where he has surpassed the century mark with his 111 yards. It's his third week of the season that he's had 75 plus. And this is actually the first game that he did not find the end zone. 4 out of 5 weeks. And the first 4 weeks of the season, he had 5 touchdowns. Now he's finally at that 1 touchdown per week average while being kept out this past week. Let me ask you this, since there wasn't much to talk about in this one other than James Madison starting to find their groove. This is now a Georgia Southern team that is 2-3 on the season. They lose to they lose to USC, and I think that a lot of people saw that coming. You would have hoped that you were a little more competitive in the game, obviously, but I think that a lot of people saw the loss to USC coming. I don't think that anyone saw the Fresno State loss coming at all. So now they're 2-3 heading into week 6. The rest of the way, they've got Southern Miss, Georgia State. It's all sunbelt. Southern Miss, Georgia State, Arkansas State, App State, Coastal, Old Dominion, and Marshall. There's a lot of talk, and I don't mean to pose such a big question for you unprepared, but there's a lot of talk coming into this season. This is the first time that Clay Helton has had a returning quarterback, and this is going to be the year where things work out. And it seems right now, based on how the offense looks, that we might be in for another tough season for Georgia Southern. What do you think, if you had to put a record on the Clay Helton is safe and is going to return to Statesboro next season, being as though this is, I believe, the end of his contract is this year? What would you say needs to happen for these Eagles?
I think he's probably safe with a bowl game. I think if they can get to a bowl game, because that means they go on a run here at the end, and I don't think that's impossible. I think this team has some chance to really improve and have some good games. I mean, that Jacksonville State game, we saw what Southern Miss did, and we'll talk about that. But that was kind of a pretty impressive victory in some regards, right? You don't want to let up 34 points defensively, but the way that game played out, they kept battling back. They kept getting that lead back, and they didn't give up. So 41-34 victory over Jacksonville State was good. And then they beat Maine. They took a little while to wake up, but they won comfortably in the end, like they're supposed to. This one was the shocker because these two teams were supposed to be at the top of the sunbelt East before the season kicked off. So to lose by 25 points is pretty shocking there. Southern Miss looks like a pretty good team, but they're not unbeatable. So we could see what Georgia Southern could do there next week. Then they've got a slate of Georgia State, Arkansas State, App State, and Coastal. 4 in a row in games, to me, that are total toss-ups at this point, even with what Georgia Southern looks like. I don't think any of those are guaranteed losses as far as I'm concerned. Again, Coastal could be turning the corner, and now they're going to look like a whole different team. But we'll see. The only two that I say, actually really the only one after what we saw this past week, but Old Dominion is the only one I'd say like chalk it up as a loss at this point.
Yeah.
And so you've got Southern Miss and Marshall that I'm like, those I'm leaning loss there at this point. But they could win those games. But the other one's total toss-up. So there's 4 right there in the middle now that they're about to come up upon, and that would give them 5 FBS wins. They'd be 1 victory away from going to a bowl game, and they'd only have to win one of Southern Miss, ODU, or Marshall. Now, saying all that, the Georgia Southern fans aren't happy at all. There's already people calling for his job. So, they're not going to be happy or content with a bowl game, but I think the administration would have a hard time getting rid of him if he goes on a run here and gets the Eagles to a bowl game to end the year.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to ask you before I gave my thoughts. I agree with you. I think that Old Dominion is the only game that I look at on the remaining schedule where I say, yeah, that's going to be tough. I think that the rest are toss-ups, just like you said. I could very well see an 8-4 season. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw an 8-4 season. Now, is that going to happen? Yet to be seen. We're going to have to see how they play against Southern Miss. I think that that's going to be a really good test because you've got Georgia State, who has underperformed thus far. Arkansas State, same story. App State,
yes,
they underperform. Well, I think that's a little recency because of what they did to what they got handed to them in Boise, but I think that App State is probably of the next 4 after Southern Miss, being Georgia State, Arkansas State, App State, and Coastal. I think that App State's the toughest game. And it's the deeper than hate game So there's a whole lot more to even consider when we get into that. But Georgia Southern has a bunch to figure out. If you were to ask either one of us, I think that's the best way to put it. They start not next week, but the week after. They play on October 9th, which I believe is a Thursday. That'll be a Thursday game in the week, not 6 but 7. If I can count, that'd be great. So they'll go they'll go back to Statesboro. They will host the Golden Eagles. Let's head to our next game. And once again, yes, I do want to that comment right there. We'll bring that up. The JMU jerseys were great. The uniform combination was fantastic. I think they got some love on social media by ESPN as well.
Yeah, I love that look. I like that logo with the dog, with the crown, better than the JMU lettering. I understand the JMU brand is stronger when you spell it out and everyone knows exactly who it is. But as someone who knows, clearly can identify who James Madison is, I like that logo better, right? So, all around great uniform for them to have on.
And let's head to this one. ULM taking on Arkansas State, and ULM once again gets the win. This is opening up Sunbelt play for them, so they are 1-0 in the Sunbelt West, a tie for first place early on. I know that it is things are very high in Monroe right now, 3-1 on the season, and this is a team. Once again, I will continue to say until they lose, I will continue to say this is a ULM team that was picked to finish dead last in the Sunbelt West. Dom, what stuck out to you in this one?
Yeah, the newly dubbed Rice Bowl rivalry. Pretty cool little feature. I think this is one. I'll go off on a slight little tangent here. We need to go back to rivalry games in rivalry week in college football. This needs to be one. The Rice Bowl rivalry. You kidding me? This, Arkansas State, ULM don't have strong rivals. ULM regionally was with Louisiana, but now we're going to have La Tech come in. We've got Southern Miss. There's a lot of other places that Louisiana could go for that rivalry game. These two are really close geographically to each other with the rice fields in between. Natural kind of rivalry there. I like this. And the other big thing in this one, the first time ULM has won this game against Arkansas State in 15 tries, 15 straight losses until this Saturday. They finally get on top of the Red Wolves 28-16. And the Red Wolves were up 10-0 in the first quarter. And you go, wow, here we go again. ULM just can't beat these guys for whatever reason. But a sloppy game. Both quarterbacks traded interceptions very, very quickly in this game. And it was just kind of ugly up until about halftime, really, to be honest, with some of the sloppy play. But ULM did jump out to a 14-10 halftime lead. And then from there, it was really neck and neck. But ULM was just a little bit more consistent, scoring 2 touchdowns in the second stanza in this one and outpacing the Red Wolves. But it's kind of that same story for ULM. Like, do they have anybody who stands out as a phenomenal 5-star looking guy that won't be there next year? No, they just get it done as a team, and they just continually grind you down until they beat you when the clock is finished. And it's exactly what they did again in this game in Arkansas State. Surprisingly, for a lot of people who thought that they might have their year finally, is kind of in that same position Georgia Southern's in, right, Nick? Now are we questioning this coaching staff? Now are we making a move to get somewhere else? ULM's not in that position. They're pretty much within the last 2 seasons in some of the best position in FBS football that they've been in since this program moved up. Yeah,
absolutely. As you mentioned, Arkansas State takes a 10-0 lead after the first quarter, and then it is 21 unanswered points heading into the third quarter by ULM to take a 21-10 lead, and they just never looked back. Keeps the Red Wolves out of the end zone the entire second half, only able to muster a couple of field goals. and then they cap it off. The Warhawks do with a touchdown with 5.5 minutes to go. Let's take a look at the box score. I mean, you look at the rushing numbers, and Arkansas State, it's such a disparity. ULM, they get a bunch of guys involved. It's 7 different ball carriers that combine for 32 yards, 32 carries, 218 yards, and a couple of scores. Arkansas State, 17 as a team. And granted, 34 yards got taken off by way of sack for Jalen Rayner. But then you look at what Jalen Rayner and the receiving corps did. That's 288 yards in the air for the Red Wolves, and you've got 2 guys for Arkansas State with over 120 yards in the air. You got Chauncey Cobb coming out of seemingly nowhere. The big name's Corey Rucker. Chauncey Cobb comes out, 8 receptions, 126 yards. Corey Rucker, 9 catches, 120 yards. Both of them kept out of the end zone. The only, there's, it is just baffling to see those numbers for this Red Wolves team. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and Hunter Summers, a guy who had been kind of on a tear on the early part of the season, was only held to 1 reception for just 5 yards. A little surprised he wasn't a little bit more heavily involved. But again, Cobb and Rucker getting it done. So really, you didn't have to go to anybody else. What you really needed to have happen was establish a better run game, because that would have made you respect the pass more and maybe could have had you don't necessarily need more passes. I mean, Rayner threw it 46 times, so it's not like they needed to throw the ball more. They just needed to establish something where they could control that clock and control the pace of the game a little bit better. I
also want to point out a good completion rate too.
Yeah,
like it's not like he was playing. It wasn't like he was playing bad. He was completing passes.
Yeah, absolutely. 29 of 46. That's not awful. That's why I hate this QBR stat. Like, I know it exists for a reason, but he was 20.5. I'll tell you what, he wasn't a 20.5 QBR quarterback in that game. He was much better than that. So I don't like some of those times when the statistics come out when you look at QBR stats, because it just doesn't tell you the full story. But while we've got Artie's comment on here, another great uniform. This is the first time that ULM has worn this kind of combination, which was the grays with the kind of maroon helmet. I guess it was kind of a gloss. It was kind of in between a gloss and a matte look, I'm sorry. So it was kind of a cool color when you saw it. And the logo on the helmet was good. It was the state outline and got Warhawks right through it with a little circle with the star in it for where Monroe is. So a nice little alternate logo there. I will say this. As a viewer on TV, right now, if we're talking about this being on one of the better platforms like main channel ESPN, ESPNU, FS1, something like that, probably wouldn't have been as big of a deal. With the ESPN Plus quality of camera and the way it gets thrown onto the internet and you stream it, kind of difficult to make out the gray versus the white uniforms in this one from a outside look. Now, obviously, they're wearing 2 different colored helmets, so that helps you. But like on a quick look, when there's a replay and they're going across the screen real quick, you're like, whoa, how did he know he's throwing it to the right guy there? It's pretty close. And I'm sure when you're there in person, it's a little bit different too than on TV. But for me, a couple times I'm like, wow, I definitely thought he threw an interception, right? I thought that was the other team, and it ended up being a guy on his own team. So great uniform. Please make those differences more dramatic as a viewer going forward, please, Sunbelt.
No, and it was strange to look at. The only real differentiator were those helmets. It doesn't help that it was also a day game. So you had the sun taking effect. I would imagine that under the lights at night, it probably looks a little darker on that gray, but
True.
Arkansas State going white with ULM with the grays. That was a little head scratching to me as well. Another thing to point out, only touchdown for Arkansas State came by way of pick six. The offense, Jalen Rayner, you look at his score line or you look at his stat line, 288 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. You think, that's, I would say, a below average day, but I mean, he's doing what he needs to do. You look at his completion rate, you look at the receivers that he has. It really just came down to that run game, being able to punch it in. That was the only way that they were able to get in was a pick six. So anything,
A credit to 6 sacks and 11 tackles for loss, with also defending 5 passes for this ULM defense. All of those numbers more than double what Arkansas State was able to do on their defensive side. We've talked about this defense before. Perkins McAllister was one of our early season defensive players of the week, as well as the Sunbelt defensive player of the week. And I think even nationally he was looked at as a player of the week. So they strung a couple more of those guys together. You could go off like the first 5 or 6 names here and remember a lot of their names being called quite a few times on Saturday for being in the backfield. And I want to shout out the two-headed monster that needs to be talked about now for ULM in the backfield with Zach Palmer-Smith. I really thought he might be the starter coming into the season. Braylon McReynolds was really that guy, but they are going back and forth, and it is working. 73 yards for McReynolds, 84 for Zach Palmer-Smith, a touchdown apiece. And these guys aren't just your bruising guys that go up the middle and just grind you away. They're also breaking it outside, as Palmer-Smith went for a 56-yard run, and McReynolds gone for just 24 in this game, but he's broken off some bigger runs earlier in the season. So these guys can go up the middle and gain the hard yardage. They can bounce it outside and beat you as well. Plus Armenta being able to kind of string together a few decent runs. He's not your fastest, most well-equipped quarterback as far as running the ball, but he can get it done, even if they don't really need much through the air, because they didn't need a ton in this game.
Yeah. Well, ULM continues a very strong start to the season. Arkansas State, unfortunately, it doesn't get much easier for them. They are going back home next week to host Texas State. So a tough matchup for Arkansas State there. We might have somebody at that game. And then for ULM next week, they've got what is now turning into a very winnable game against a power conference opponent. They are going to Northwestern up in Chicago. Northwestern, of course, they lost in the first week of the season to Tulane. And that has become a storyline where Tulane is now being looked at with some CFP implications now that they had beaten that power conference opponent. ULM's going to get a shot at Northwestern. So 2 exciting games next week for these 2 teams. Let's take a look at our favorite at this point in time, I would think, to win the Sunbelt East if the season ended today. And you had to go based on how the teams looked. I think Old Dominion is your favorite to represent the East in the Sunbelt Championship, and they showed it on Saturday. They defeated Liberty 21-7. Granted, this is not a Liberty team of years past where Jamie Chadwell has a 10-win team on the roster, but this is still a big out-of-conference win, big regional win, in-state rivals. What did you like from this one, Dom?
Yeah, this one was tough, as you can see in the graphic for those watching. You can see in the background people heavily decked out in rain gear because this one was nasty. It was sloppy. It rained hard. I mean, I think the entirety of the game, sometimes from the camera angle, it was hard to tell how hard it was raining, and they'd show a close-up shot, and you realize, wow, it is really coming down there. So a nasty game that could have been even more in favor of ODU had the weather not played a little bit of a factor with some possible scoring positions that kind of got faltered at the end because of the sloppy wet ball situation. But yeah, like you said, Liberty we knew was down coming in. Ethan Vasco was, I think they did try and surprise and be like, well, maybe he's going to play, but he definitely did not play. I did not expect him to play with kind of how that was treated after he left the James Madison game. And then they didn't really have, and they don't really have across their roster the guys that they used to. And I always thought Liberty was overrated anyway, and now we're finally getting to prove that they are this year for sure. The nice part is now ODU, James Madison have both beaten Liberty. So this game later on after ODU also beat Virginia Tech, the only question could be ODU, JMU, and Virginia. Who's the best team in Virginia as far as football this year, which is great. That's up in the question mark because two of those teams are in our conference now. So that's a pretty cool thing to have people questioning at all. I mean, this one, about the only thing I'll say is I thought that they would beat Liberty by more than James Madison did. They end up not doing that. But again, had the weather been less of a factor, I think you're seeing a very similar scoring disparity between ODU and James Madison against this Liberty squad, which makes me think that royal rivalry coming up between ODU and JMU is going to be one heck of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to look at how the how the weather played a factor in this one, just go ahead and look at the fumbles. You have 3 fumbles lost by Old Dominion. Actually, every single fumble in this game was recovered by the opposing the defense, which is wild to me. Colton Joseph had 1, Marky James had 1, Traquan Jones had 1. All of them were lost, and then, of course, on the other side, you've got Caden Williams and Evan Dickens that each lost a fumble. So the rain was coming down hard. Even with that, you've got Colton Joseph, 271 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, just 1 pick. And then on the ground, where you would expect him to have more of an impact, he puts in the work there too. 76 yards rushing, no touchdowns on 15 carries. Traquan Jones as well, another 89 yards, 219 as a team for the Monarchs. And yes, that is another great point. All 3 of the fumbles within the 10-yard line in the red zone. So just a very untimely time for those fumbles. But Old Dominion got the job done. They jump out to a 14-0 halftime lead after a scoreless first quarter. Both teams kind of like feeling their way through the rain. Liberty unable to get on the scoreboard until the third quarter, and it would be the only time that they do. I think it's time, though, that we need to start having some very serious conversations about Colton Joseph winning Offensive Player of the Year. It is now, before, you think, oh, well, maybe, he's a dual threat quarterback. Very cool. Now he's doing it consistently. It's not a fluke anymore. It's 4 straight weeks. It's a third of the season for Old Dominion. Colton Joseph's the real deal, and he is, in my opinion, by far the front runner.
No, there's no doubt about it. I have him as my front runner as well right now. We kind of know he was going to be there regardless, even after just the short spurt that we saw out of last season. But the question was, and we know how these awards go, we talked about this before, you still have to be a great player on a good team. You don't have to be on the best team, but you've got to be pretty close. So you can't have Colton Joseph putting up these kind of numbers and have ODU sitting at, 2-2, right? Then he's not going to be in the conversation. What even he should be, but you know how it works. He wouldn't have been there. So with them sitting over there at 3-1 instead, obviously it's an easy conversation to have because everyone's probably going to mostly agree with it right now. But he's also getting some help to help him take some of that workload off that he put on his shoulders a little bit more last year. Traquan Jones has come in and been a dominant runner for them as well, so that Joseph doesn't have to carry the ball quite as much, doesn't have to take so many of those hits that he took last year when he was carrying the ball. Ja'Cory Thomas is really starting to stand out as a wideout because we kind of questioned who that was going to be. That was what I didn't know coming into the season. A lot of unknowns at the wide receiver position. Joseph was going to have to develop and continue to improve his game there. And obviously a guy like Thomas is coming in, is really helping him do that.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Ja'Cory Thomas in this one. 5 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2 of the 3 touchdowns for Old Dominion belong to Mr. Thomas. This is his 3rd straight week of 80-plus yards. His first week against Indiana, as we know, that was Colton Joseph's game on the ground with, I think it was 176 rushing yards, if I'm thinking off the top of my head for Colton Joseph. So not a whole lot getting done in the air against the top 20 opponent. But then against North Carolina Central, Virginia Tech, and Liberty, 86, 83, and 114 yards respectively. So yes, Thomas is he's truly coming into form. And G. Wills, yes, all of those uncertainties at receiver have been getting answered. So I did want to make sure that we shouted out Ja'Cory Thomas. Another big performance from Trey Brown. Trey Brown, 4 catches, 81 yards. 271 as a team, of course, in the air for Colton Joseph, and you had 6 different guys catching the ball, 3 guys with 4 or more catches. So he's spreading the ball around, and like I said, he's still getting it. Colton Joseph, and he's still getting it done on the ground. 15 carries, 76 yards. Colton Joseph, 4 Offensive Player of the Year, a third of the way through Old Dominion's schedule. I don't think it's a question. He is playing like the best player in the sunbelt right now. Go ahead.
Early. So still early. Some people could jump up, but I think you're right. I mean, I think if you had to vote right now, I don't know who you'd put in front of him.
I don't know who you put in front of him. And he's going to get another chance next week at home. Back in Norfolk, Chanticleers are coming to town. This is going to be, I think, a true test. First Sunbelt opponent. Not a test in the sense of, Coastal's going to be a difficult win for Old Dominion or, based on how they both look right now. Any team can beat any team on any day. But I think that this is the true test of where do they sit in the conference. You've beaten Virginia Tech. You were competitive against Indiana. And you beat Liberty pretty handedly as well. How do you look when you go up against your peers? That is where I think this game against Coastal is going to be very important for the Monarchs. That's what they've got going on next weekend. Let's move to the next game.
Well, before you do that,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to shout you out off the top of your head. You were only 3 yards off Joseph's week 1 rushing total, which was 179. So kudos to you for being so darn close. That was
I
just
had to flip it around.
There you go.
In the words of Aubrey Drake Graham, flip the 6 upside down. It's a 9 now. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw the reason. No, the reason I did. We're going to take a tangent here because I do have the cup here. This is a Syracuse cup. Steve Angeli, before he went down with the injury, Notre Dame transferred to Syracuse. He's number 9 this year, and he was at that point in time leading the nation in passing. Last year, as we know, Kyle McCord was number 6 for Syracuse. And he led the nation in passing throughout the entire season. So they did a really funny thing, shouting out Angeli. They said, turn the 6 upside down. It's a 9 now. They just played that song in the background. So that is why that was on my mind. That's why I'm not a genius or anything like that. But that was fun.
That is good. This is great. Useful Spark 977. I haven't seen this name yet, so this is cool to have a new comment. I can't wait for the most sicko Sunbelt Conference Championship game between Old Dominion and ULM, which would be a Week 10 rematch. I'll tell you what, we've been following this conference, doing all this stuff to keep up with it and keep everybody up to speed. I still think that'd be a great game. I think I'd be looking forward to that.
As of right now, those are I think you've got ULM and Texas State. I think are like the two best teams in the West. Old Dominion, I think it's really it comes down to 4 teams at this moment in time. Old Dominion or JMU, Texas State or ULM. So I think that is a very real possibility, that game that you just mentioned.
Yeah, we got one to come up, probably the last game we're going to talk about. I don't think we can count those guys out just yet after that performance and who's now taken over at the starting quarterback position.
Yeah, but absolutely. Something about a meal during the day. Anyway.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, let's go to the next game. Southern Miss, Jacksonville State. This looked a lot like the Southern Miss that a lot of the I would say the Southern Miss hopefuls were hoping that the Golden Eagles would look like when you take the entire Marshall roster from last year and put them in Hattiesburg. 42-25, Golden Eagles get the win. 21-3 lead heading into halftime. Just an outstanding performance for the Golden Eagles. They improved to 3-2 on the year, 3-1 at home. That lone loss, by the way, only coming to Mississippi State, who was in Hattiesburg, of course. This SEC opponent coming to a Sunbelt school was a rarity. What'd you like from this game, Dom, other than just outstanding performance?
Yeah, I mean, this one was one where Southern Miss got up quickly, early, and they just really never looked back. I mean, at most, you thought Jack State, I guess, came on a little bit stronger in the end, if you want to say that. I mean, it really never got all that close. It never felt all that threatening. So, very comfortable win. And we have to remind people, for those of you who didn't go to sunbeltsyndicate.com and read the preview, that this was a game just last season that Jack State won 44-7. So that tells you where this program was at and where they are now, because Jack State has stayed pretty consistent. I mean, they're not quite as good maybe as they were last year, but they're not an awful team. I mean, they're sitting there at 2-3, not great, but this is a program that's come in and played pretty strong right away in FBS football, and wanted to have all the talking points they had last year after that demolishing victory that they had. And now Southern Miss has come out and said, not so fast. Now we've got who we want, and we are sitting where we want, and we're going to do what we want this time around. And they did exactly that. Braylon Braxton, not even really one of his most standout performances, right? I mean, 13 of 22, pretty good. 152 yards. Okay, so that doesn't stand out more than some of the other performances he had. 2 touchdowns.
I'll cut you off for a second, because that's what stands out the most to me, is that they're really, unless you're looking at touchdown totals per player, there's really no performance that stands out to me. This is an overall team domination. There are a lot of contributors here. You've got Braylon Braxton, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has another one on the ground with 41 rushing yards. You've got Jeffrey Pittman, who had 2 touchdowns, 80 yards on the ground, 80 out of the 227 that they had as a team. You look at the receivers, I mean, just a plethora of different guys. 9 receivers catching a ball, only 4 of them, caught more than 1 pass. Just overall dominance. I don't know that there was really nobody other than Braylon Braxton, because he's in the middle of every play as the quarterback, but it was just dominant all around. I'd say Southern Miss won this game. No particular Golden Eagle was the I guess the factor.
Yeah, I'll say, like you said, Braxton, because he's literally touching the ball on about every snap in case they've got, some wildcat kind of look or something that I missed. But Jeffrey Pittman, the running back, 18 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, but his average was 4.4. So you give him the ball 3 times in a row, you're picking up a first down like rather easily, right? So it's not the most flashy, the most sexy runs that he's breaking out, 40 yards, 35 yards. He did go for a long 25, but he's just getting it. It's kind of like we'll talk about in a minute, but like Dominick for App State, not necessarily the flashiest big long runner, but he gets down and dirty right up the gut, and he's going to continue to grind away and get you hard-nosed yards all the time, and that's what he did. Carl Chester, their wide receiver who was been their all-everything guy, like you said, 1 reception, just 13 yards, but he did have a touchdown, right? So, like, even though he's not a huge factor all throughout the game, he still got on the scoreboard. Like you said, it was really just consistency all the way around, and it helps you see where this program is headed very, very quickly. And again, how a lot of people at Southern Miss, I think tentatively were looking forward to, and a lot of people didn't want to get too high too quick. I think you could start getting a little more excited now, Golden Eagle fans.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting that you said that you pointed out Jeffrey Pittman, 4.4 yards per carry on the ground. You look at all of their rushers. Braylon Braxton, surprisingly, with his 12 carries, 3.4 yards per carry. That's the lowest on the team out of the, 5 people that recorded a rush. Every single player that recorded a rush is staying ahead of schedule on 3 downs. They're you could give them all 3 straight handoffs, and you won't see a 4th down. That is kind of crazy to me, as in terms of looking at how this rushing attack did as a unit. There was nobody that was really you went to them and they weren't able to get it done. Every single person that recorded a rush, they had success on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Another successful thing. Ian Foster gets yet another pick 6. We know he had that big long one against App State. This time around went for 49 yards before he got into the end zone. So not quite a 99-yard variety. So it's such a letdown there, but he still gets to put 6 points on the board. And Josh Moten, another transfer from Marshall, gets his first interception on the season. So even the defense is, again, spreading it around, getting it done all over the place. So just a great performance that included 4 sacks, 8 of them for loss. It was just a solid thing. There's not much to say. I mean, like, just congratulations to the whole team, because it was just phenomenal outing against Jack State.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. As we mentioned, Southern Miss heading to Statesboro, take on Georgia Southern, not this weekend, but on the next Thursday, October 9th. So they'll have a weekend off to prepare for that. But like we said, they improved to 3-2. And now I think you can start to get excited, as you said, Charles Huff, starting to figure things out with the new program. Now, let's take a brief moment. Let's take down the graphic, just you and me. Have a little heart to heart for a second. So I know that this next part's going to be a little tough for you. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here for you. I just, I wanted to make sure that we had this talk. No profanity. We keep it PG here, right?
Yeah, we try to. Oh, right. Man.
Well, Let's take a deep breath and let's get into this one. Yikes. That is not a good look.
It doesn't get any prettier when it gets on there, right?
It doesn't get any prettier. I'm looking at it right now on here, and I'll tell you, let me ask you this question, because this isn't to rag on App State. This is more to rag on Dom. When you were making this graphic, how bad did you feel?
I guess.
What kind of thoughts were going through your mind?
Mainly just like 47. And then for like the disparity of the numbers, I was just like, really? It was that bad? Like it felt like that, but like to see the numbers beside each other on top of each other as they are in this instance, just like, okay, wow, that's bad. Like that's really, really bad. It felt bad, but it didn't feel maybe quite that bad until you see the final score again. You're like, oh man, that was really bad, really ugly.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a fun one to make. At least we found a picture that kind of featured our running back that had himself a little bit of a day.
Yeah, I was going to say 47-14 is the final score, as you see there. Boise State, just quite literally, the Broncos ran away with it. The only success that App State really had in this game came in the form of Rashad Dominick, number 7 on your screen there. 17 carries, 113 yards, 6.6 yards per carry, kept out of the end zone, however. Yeah, it was Dalton Stroman recorded a touchdown in the air. Jakari Lewis, 23 yards total. He had the other touchdown for App State, but it was Maddox Madsen that really went off in this one. 25 for 37 passing, 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Just overall a crazy performance for Maddox Madsen. Of course you got to look at the defense as well.
Oh yeah, they were all over the place. I'll give a shout out to the two-headed monster at the running back position, Sire Gaines and Malik Sherrod. Neither one of them go over the century mark, but look at that per average on the carries. 5.8 and 5.4 every time they touch the ball. They're grabbing over 5 yards. Hard to win when you're allowing the opponent to continually beat you on the ground. App State got themselves into a number of third and manageable positions on defense, but then they would just do just enough to get that first down, keep the drive going, just kind of you could just see the body language start to go on occasion. Just, oh man, like we stopped them nice. We even had a decent loss, like a tackle for loss on second down and backed them up. And, they got the first down yet again. So it was just kind of demoralizing in that facet of the game. And you talk about Madsen having just a great game at the quarterback position and hitting some wide receivers. Caples felt like he was a man possessed there for a while. Somehow didn't go over the century mark. It felt like it. He had a long of 34, 84 yards total, but he did have those 2 touchdowns. So just a great game there. I mean, listen to this statistic. App State, as a team, 65 yards through the air after coming into this game 3rd in the nation in passing offense per game. Like, I'm dumbfounded by how badly they performed through the air. And part of that is a credit to Boise State's defensive front for getting into the backfield, causing disruptions, not letting them set up, not letting AJ Swan have enough time to look down his receiver. The other TJ, Mr. Corman, for the preview show, let me know as a former quarterback himself. He's like, this is bad. What he's doing because of the pressure and because of his just choice he's making, both combined, was this bad fundamental football because he's having to lock on his first option at wide receiver and he's throwing it right to him every time because he doesn't really have any other choice. And that was exactly what happened on that first pick 6. And that's also what causes you to go down 14-0 very quickly and feel like, oh man, here we go. The bye week was supposed to help with this, take better care of the ball, get our team in better position, and we're doing the same thing over again. So frustrating to watch, and just really didn't get any better throughout the entire evening up there in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 2 pick 6s in this one. I believe if I'm reading this correctly, because I did not watch all of this game, but you had a scoop and score as well. Yeah, just a tough, very, very tough Very, very tough outing for the Mountaineers. Just overall, you went into a lot of it. Is there anything else you want to say about this game before we head on to the next one?
I mean, I just get a little more detail, but not too much. Jaden Barnes had one really hit him in the chest, hands that he definitely should have caught. Should have been a first down very early in the game. Didn't receive another catch the entirety of the game, so he actually didn't have any receptions for the entire game as he came in as one of the leaders in offense per game average again in the nation. Isaiah Cummings, I think, is a little bit of a bright spot. He's a big tight end. Came in, got 3 receptions, just 20 yards. But when he touches the ball, he feels like he's going to get more. He's a big guy. He's hard to bring down at that tight end position. So let's see if he can mature within the offense. But really, the only guy I'm giving a stick or two on the helmet of any sort is Dominick for how he grinded it out, even though the rest of the team didn't do enough to help him get into the end zone and keep this score a little closer.
Yeah, absolutely. After the 2-0 start, App State loses the last 2. They are 2-2 on the season, and now they will go back home to Boone to take on the 0-5 Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State looking for their first win. App State looking to right the ship. That one should be a good one. Power conference opponent that App State has a chance to do something with. That game
Are
will be.
Are they really a power conference opponent though?
No, I guess not.
Pac-2.
They're in the Pac-6. Yeah, so I guess not anymore. October 4th, that's when the game is, 3:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Check that one out as App State heads back home for Oregon State, and then their sunbelt conference the rest of the way.
Yeah, we'll have 2 people at that one, TJ. 2 people at that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's get into the main event. This one was a thriller. Marshall and Louisiana, a rematch of the Sunbelt Conference Championship just a year ago. We had said, how much appeal does this game actually have at this point? Louisiana struggling early on in the season, Marshall struggling because most of their roster from last season currently lives in Hattiesburg. So, it's this game lost its appeal, and I got to tell you, it delivered in more ways than one. In every single facet of the game, this game delivered. Louisiana gets the win in double overtime, 54-51. We had Torrey Trahan at the game. Just a fantastic game that was tied heading into halftime and, of course, went to overtime. Just give me your first reaction to this the absolute thriller.
Well, I mean, thank goodness, right? I mean, we had just one of the most awful championship games we could have had last season. A real big downer. I think it actually would have felt a little bit more lively and better had it been in Huntington, right? Like had Marshall done that at home in a championship game, at least the atmosphere would have been better, right? But you had this one on the road, so it was tough to kind of watch and really even get all that excited for, because just the atmosphere wasn't there. This one was the total opposite. You've got, I mean, first of all, look, you've got the Christmas colors, right? You're green and red already. You got the white mixed in there. It's just like on the eyes, it's something that just completely draws you in. Both schools wearing phenomenal jersey combinations. The all red for the Cajuns is kind of a signature, but it just looks good out there on the field. That's, very recently redone with new turf and the Our Lady of Lourdes Stadium. And then Marshall with the phenomenal new look with, I think it was all white with the green helmet. Green's one of my favorite colors, so I'm definitely partial to that aspect of it. But again, like you said, TJ, this game was tied at halftime, so you're already immediately in a much better game than we saw last December. And then you have what looks like a Marshall victory yet again. And then Lunch Winfield gets the ball, and it was lunchtime because the guy just lit it up all over the field. I've been clamoring to see him more ever since I was told about him. Really 2 seasons ago. He was coming in. We knew he wasn't going to see a lot of time as a true freshman, but this is a kid who had put up statistics better than some guy named Arch Manning in high school and played at a better level within the state of Louisiana than Arch Manning in high school, but obviously doesn't win the award. As I kind of alluded to earlier, you got to have, be on a good team and all this stuff. I think they were both on good teams. I think it was the name factor that helped Arch win that award over Lunch. But this is a guy who can get it done, straight up get it done on the football field. And here's the biggest thing, right? His talent has been known. It's just whether they were going to give him the real shot he needed. But one thing he did in the background that I've seen evidence of is he's won his teammates over. Like when he was the guy, when he became the guy in this game, they were ready to go already. As soon as he was the dude, they were ready to follow. They were ready to see him and help him with success in this game because they love this dude, the work ethic he puts in, the plays he can make, and we finally saw him get to put it all together. And man, there's no choice for Desmo going forward about who's going to be the starting quarterback down there in Lafayette.
Well, let's take a look at this this stat line for Lunch Winfield. So Daniel Beal comes off after 7 and 15. He throws for 72 yards, 2 picks. Not a great game for Daniel Beal. Lunch Winfield hits the field. We're gonna have to fix that. Lunch Winfield comes in, 125 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, average 9.6 per pass. Okay, so that's pretty good when you consider he played about half the game.
Yep.
On the ground, 13 carries, 129 yards, 3 touchdowns, nearly 10 yards per carry. What a performance by Lunch Winfield. 5 total touchdowns, 254 total yards of offense, no picks. I think I already said 5 total touchdowns. Anytime that he did anything, if he passed, he ran it, it was over 9.6 yards. It was just electric on the football field. You've been campaigning for him. What do you got to say about his performance in particular, other than, what you've said already? Just walk me through what you saw him do on the field.
Yeah, I mean, he was just a lightning rod, right? You look for that guy who you give the ball to and can make a play, and that's I really can't state it much more than that, right? Like he was the guy you wanted to have the ball in your hands. A couple of those touchdowns he threw, they weren't just like, okay, he gave it to the guy and the wideout made a couple juke moves and got into the end zone. No, he was dropping dimes over the shoulders deep into the end zone. The receiver ran the route correctly, but he threw the ball only where it could be put for them to make that play. So this isn't just like, short screen pass and the guy walked into the end zone for a thrown touchdown, but he went 4 yards. No, these were phenomenal throws and tosses. I don't know why he wasn't given this kind of opportunity sooner. From what I had heard, again, 2 seasons ago now at Sunbelt Media Days, Coach Dez lit up when I talked to him about Lunch and what he meant to the program. He kind of talked about Lunch more than he talked about the other starters coming in. So he's wanted this kid to succeed. But whatever reason, he hasn't been given that full shot until they were down in this one. And now he's going to get his shot going forward because he's earned it. And there's no doubt he's earned it.
He's going to be the starter moving forward.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He all but said that in the post-game press conference. Of course, you're going to get the coach speak where he says, we're gonna look at it or whatever he said. I think he had a big smile on his face and said something about like he's not going to give me much of a choice. So at least we're hearing that he's very much on the side of Lunch, getting the starting nod and being that guy. And hey, they've been looking for something like this ever since they started their downturn at the beginning of the season, where Walker Howard goes down early. It's here. This is your opportunity now, right? You've got this big win to start your conference play. Keep it rolling and keep this momentum going. This is what the Cajun fans have been hoping for and wanting to see. And it's here now. So take full advantage. And I'll say this, we haven't talked really about the Marshall side of things. 51 points on the board. This was not a bad game. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was just two really good teams and one that just did not quit and came back and overcame to win this game at home in double overtime. But Carlos Del Rio Wilson, TJ, talk to him. I mean, tell him what his stat line was. That was phenomenal performance.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth. You know, we were going to start with Louisiana just because that is such a great story. You know, they just a tough way to start the year, 1-3 coming into this game, and then they grind out this victory. They're down big, 2 scores going into the fourth quarter, and then they pull out the victory. So, of course, a lot of the attention is going to be on Louisiana. Overshadows a tremendous game from Carlos Del Rio Wilson. 258 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 7 incompletions. That's it. Yeah. 7 incompletions in 31 attempts. 24 for 31. On the ground, he has 21 carries, 81 yards, doesn't find the end zone, but like, you know, hey, that's quite the performance from him. He's putting on his best Colton Joseph impression. And I told you at the beginning of the year, this is what Carlos Del Rio Wilson is capable of. He is a dual threat quarterback. He has the potential. If he had gotten the start all weeks of the season, I mean, we could very well be talking about a guy who's on pace for 4,000 yards. I think I said 4,500 at the beginning of the season, but, you know, realistically, could be on pace for 4,000 yards. Now he's finally getting his opportunity, and while in a losing effort, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind now that, like, this is a Marshall team that is figuring things out. Yes. Del Rio Wilson he's settled into his role. He's getting some great chemistry with his receivers, especially DeMarcus Lacey in this one. Lacey, 10 catches for 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. You've got 7 pass catchers in this one. 6 pass catchers in this one. ESPN has this very weird stat that I wanted to bring up before. Apparently, Carlos Del Rio Wilson had no catches for 2 yards. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Fix that, ESPN. But DeMarcus Lacey, 10 catches, 146 yards, 39 yards from Michael Allen. The other touchdown in the air came from Adrian Norton, 28 yards and a touchdown. All of these passes, Del Rio Wilson's averaging 10.8 yards per catch in this game. He's getting the job done. On the ground, 138 yards from Michael Allen, like 2 touchdowns from him. This is not a bad game for Marshall. This Marshall, 9 times out of 10, this box score for Marshall gets a win, and they improve to 3-2. But it was lunchtime, as you tweeted out.
It was lunchtime, and you know what's great is when you said Carlos Del Rio Wilson is a true dual threat. I'd say he's a triple threat. There was a play in this game where he hands it off to his running back, who was probably Allen. I don't know exactly if that was who it was, but anyway, they're about to go into the end zone, and Del Rio Wilson runs ahead of his running back and delivers like a tight end block to a defensive end, because only Carlos Del Rio Wilson can do that at his size, you know, like a Cam Newton style big quarterback. So he throws a huge block and helps spring his running back into the end zone. And it's like, I think even whoever tweeted that out was like, who does that as a quarterback? I mean, just takes the lead block and delivers it. Quality one, right? This isn't just like hey, I'm gonna push him. I'm gonna try and knock him out of the way just a little bit. No, he knocked him good. And I mean, like you said, this box score is nothing to be ashamed about for Marshall fans. The one thing that they're harking on, and it, you know, could be a disparity. I haven't gone back to watch every play of this game and see every foul, but during regulation, because there was a penalty against the Cajuns in overtime, I believe, for on the kicking on one of the field goals. But in regulation, 0 penalties called on the Cajuns, 10 penalties thrown on the Herd. So a pretty big disparity. Again, until I get to go back and really watch this game in full, I'm not going to know if that makes sense or if that's something that needs to be looked at a little bit, because that is a pretty big disparity. However, having been an official in the past, yes, you sometimes have games where one team's just kind of out of hand, out of pocket, and the other team's playing pretty fair. It does happen. I know a lot of people like to see 7-5 in penalties, so it's kind of fair. It's not always fair, but again, until I see everything with my own eyes, I'll keep my judgment away from that, because I'm not just going to blindly agree that there were 10 and 0 on the other team until I can put my eye test on it for myself.
Well, I think regardless of your eye test, you're going to have a whole bunch of Marshall fans saying it was unfair, and a whole bunch of Raging Cajun fans saying that it was the greatest officiated game that they've ever seen in their lives. So, regardless of that, I mean, if 10 penalties makes you lose by 3. I think it's a great game by both sides. You can make your arguments, and they're probably valid arguments. I haven't seen all of these plays either in question, but just a great game. Lunch Winfield, Carlos Del Rio Wilson put on a show. Double overtime thriller. Raging Cajuns starting to figure some things out, as are the Herd. For both of these teams, for Louisiana, next time out, they are at James Madison. That will be on Saturday. And then, of course, for Marshall, next time out, they're going to Old Dominion. They're going home to face Old Dominion. So, couple of really good games, especially coming off of this one. Marshall heading into Old Dominion. This is the kind of performance you want. And it's also the scenario that you would want heading into that game. Old Dominion, big time opponent this year in the Sunbelt East, and you're just coming off of a heartbreaking loss where you played really, really well. That is the Marshall that's got some upset heat, I think. That is a big game to keep your eye on.
The rivalry game there's a movement to get it called the Battle for the Gavel, because they have some founding fathers that are, the reason their institutions are named the way they are. So Battle for the Gavel, for people who like those name games, between Marshall and James Madison coming up. That one could be really good, really underrated at the early part of the season.
Here's a trivia question for you. Who's Marshall named after?
Is it Thurgood Marshall?
I think it's Thurgood Marshall. Good. You know your American history. Nice job. All right. Saturday, October 4th. You can take the graphic down. We'll go through the slate one last time. At 3:30, we get a late start for Sunbelt play. ULM at Northwestern at 3:30 on ESPN Plus. This is all Eastern time. Oregon State traveling to Boone to take on App State at the same time, as is James Madison heading to Atlanta to take on Georgia State. 4:00 Eastern, Texas State heading to Jonesboro to take on Arkansas State. And then you've got at 6:00 Coastal Carolina, Old Dominion in Norfolk. And then at 7:00 Eastern to the nightcap, if you will, for Sunbelt play, South Alabama at Troy. What game do you have circled on your list, Dom? And I know you're going to talk about it throughout this week, but
yeah, the one I'll be at, obviously, Oregon State, App State, but a lot of luster lost right before. A lot of App fans were like, "Oh, that's our shot." Like you said, kind of a team that used to be that power team. You can debate whether they really are or not anymore, but they're winless. and App State just got hammered. So that game lost a lot of luster for me. So I'm going to go with the Battle of the Belt and look at South Alabama and Troy. That's always got a lot of heat. They hate each other. It's what makes college football great. So that is the one that I've got marked as the most interesting and most kind of important within the Sun Belt for this coming week's action.
I got to tell you, I mentioned it before, but I think ULM Northwestern, ULM's got a shot here. ULM has a very serious shot here. If ULM can pull off this win against Northwestern, I think people need to start circling the Warhawks, if they haven't already, as one of the favorites to win the West. And, I know that we were joking before, Old Dominion versus ULM, the Sicko Sunbelt Championship or whatever. That's such a real possibility, though, and it's just a year ago. It would have sounded like a foreign language coming out of your mouth. Yeah, ULM, if they can pull off this win and go to 4-1 on the season, they're going to be really good.
Yeah. And I just don't think Northwestern's a great football team. Should they be favored? Probably, because they played an Oregon team within 20 points, which that's not great, but it's not bad, right? I mean, Oregon's blown people out by a lot more. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, Tulane beat them by 20 points too. So I don't know.
I mean, an Oregon team that just beat Penn State at their place on the whiteout game. That's it's a team to watch. I think. I think within 20 points to Oregon, Northwestern is a team that you should be concerned about. 2-2, just concern, not fearful, but concerned.
Right.
But ULM is in a really good spot, I think, heading into this one. Any comments that we should address really quick before we head out of here?
I don't think so. We think we kind of hit most of them as we went along. I mean, Warren's saying Troy, South Alabama. Obviously, he's involved with that side of the rivalry, so that one makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one that maybe us on the East don't know as much of the history of, but one that I've become more in tune with since doing this Syndicate thing, and one that I always get excited for pretty good. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Absolutely. Well, if you want to get your daily dose of Sunbelt sports, head to sunbeltsyndicate.com. We do previews, we do recaps, we do feature stories. We've got a couple really good feature stories that I don't want to tease too much. One of them has to do with a particular Georgia State quarterback. One of them has to do with a particular game happening in Jonesboro at some point this year. So keep an eye on those. We've got some great writers working on those right now. But check out what we did this past weekend. We're looking to get someone at the Arkansas State Texas State game in Jonesboro this upcoming week. So keep an eye on our Twitter for that. That is at Sunbelt Syndicate without the E. Sunbelt Syndicate without the E. But yeah, that is gonna do it, I think, for the wrap. If you have anything that you want to throw on there,
I'll throw the peace sign out and say we'll see you guys for Wednesday's preview with the other TJ. We'll go from one TJ to the other.
One TJ to the other. That'll do it for the wrap. Getting out of here at exactly 10 o'clock. We will see you in the next one. See ya.